Today, we're taking a closer look at some muscle car names that deserved better. Cars that carried legendary emblems but showed up in controversial, awkward, or downright disappointing form. And trust me, some of these might surprise you. The 1962 Dodge Dart 413. Max Wedge is one of those cars that proves performance and beauty don't always go hand in hand. When Dodge introduced the Dart in 1960, it was positioned as a brand new full-size model. But just 2 years later, Dodge completely reworked it and moved it into the intermediate segment. That sudden shift gave us a car that felt like it was still trying to figure out what it wanted to be. Styling-wise, the 1962 Dart was unusual. Designers leaned heavily into aircraft-inspired themes, blending tail fins with rounded fuselage-like curves. On paper, it sounded futuristic. In reality, many enthusiasts thought it looked awkward. The front end, in particular, divided opinions, and the overall proportions left a lot of people scratching their heads. But then came the surprise. 1962 was also the year Dodge unleashed the Max Wedge version of its RB Big Block. Under the hood sat a 413 cubic inch engine, that's 6.8 liters, pumping out 410 horsepower in gross ratings. Dodge called it the Ram Charger 413, and this wasn't just a mild upgrade. It transformed the Dart into a legitimate street-legal drag weapon. Available in a limited number of two-door hardtops, these cars were technically legal for the road, but they were built with the drag strip in mind. In many ways, this Dart was a true muscle car before the muscle car era officially exploded. It arrived 2 years before Pontiac made factory performance mainstream with the GTO. And yet, despite its groundbreaking power, the styling kept it from becoming universally loved. Next up, we move into the 70s with a name that once ruled the streets, the 1973 Pontiac GTO. When Pontiac introduced the GTO package in 1964, it changed everything. High-performance intermediates suddenly became accessible, and muscle cars exploded into the mainstream. By 1970, the redesigned GTO was widely considered one of the most beautiful muscle cars ever built. But then came 1973. The entire Tempest line underwent another major redesign, and the new colonnade styling aimed to blend upscale sophistication with aggressive cues. Instead, it landed somewhere in between. The proportions felt heavier, the lines lost their sharpness, and the once menacing GTO suddenly looked softer and bulkier. To make matters worse, the GTO was no longer its own standalone model. After 6 years of independence, it became just an option package once again. Under the hood, buyers could choose a 400 cubic inch 6.6-liter V8 as standard, or step up to a 455 cubic inch 7.5-liter V8. But by this point, tightening emissions regulations had taken their toll. Output dropped to 230 and 250 horsepower in net ratings. On paper, that was a massive fall from glory. And yet, here's the twist. The 1973 GTO actually handled well. Many enthusiasts who've driven one will tell you it's one of the most underrated versions of Pontiac's GOAT. It may have lost its brute strength and striking looks, but it gained composure and balance in the corners. Then there's the 1975 Ford Mustang II Mach 1, a car that might be one of the most debated Mustangs of all time. The original Mustang revolutionized the American car market when it debuted in the mid-60s. Its European-inspired grand touring design, endless options, and growing performance lineup made it an instant icon. Over time, high-performance versions like the Mach 1, Cobra Jet, and Super Cobra Jet became true muscle car royalty. But in 1974, everything changed. Ford downsized the Mustang dramatically, basing the Mustang II on the compact Pinto platform. It was smaller, lighter, and focused heavily on fuel efficiency, a direct response to rising fuel prices and stricter regulations. While the car sold extremely well thanks to its affordable price and practical engines, many enthusiasts felt betrayed. In 1975, Ford tried to win performance fans back. They introduced an optional 302 cubic inch 4.9-liter V8, marketed proudly as a 5.0. They also revived the Mach 1 trim, based on the two-door fastback body style. But here's the reality. The 5.0 V8 produced just 140 horsepower in net ratings. That's a far cry from the tire-shredding Cobra Jets of the late 60s. The Mach 1 graphics and revised lower bumpers helped a little visually, but they couldn't disguise the car's humble roots. Compared to the original Mach 1, this version felt like a shadow of its former self. Now let's talk about the 1976 Dodge Charger Daytona. By the mid-70s, muscle cars were fighting for survival. Insurance premiums were sky high. Emissions regulations were tightening, and the oil crisis had reshaped buyer priorities overnight. Still, manufacturers tried to keep performance names alive to attract younger buyers. Dodge continued producing the Charger, but by the fourth generation, it was almost unrecognizable compared to the legendary second-generation cars with their beautiful Coke bottle curves. Performance had dropped significantly, and the styling lost much of its earlier charisma. To spark excitement, Dodge introduced the Daytona Appearance Package in 1976. Buyers could choose between a 360 cubic inch 5.9-liter V8 or a 400 cubic inch 6.6-liter V8. But let's be clear, this was not a spiritual successor to the wild 1969 NASCAR-inspired Daytona. It was primarily an appearance package. Decals, trim changes, and minor cosmetic tweaks tried to inject some personality into a platform that many enthusiasts already considered bland. It carried a legendary name, but it didn't carry the same legendary presence. Finally, we come to the 1978 Oldsmobile 442. When the 442 debuted in the mid-60s, it quickly became a serious rival to the GTO. Over time, it evolved into its own standalone model and earned a reputation as one of the most respected muscle cars of the era, thanks largely to Oldsmobile's strong V8 lineup. But by the late 70s, the muscle car formula had changed dramatically. The 442 had become just an option package on the Cutlass, and not just any Cutlass, but the aero-back semi-fastback version that many enthusiasts found painfully uninspiring in terms of design. Under the hood, buyers could choose from the available Cutlass engines, with the most powerful option being a 305 cubic inch 5.0 four-barrel Chevy small block V8, rated at 160 horsepower in net form. Compared to the fire-breathing monsters that once wore the 442 badge, this version felt tame. Unique decals and minor cosmetic touches tried to preserve the legacy, but the magic simply wasn't there. For many enthusiasts, the 1978 442 represents one of the most disappointing reinterpretations of a once great muscle car name. Looking back at all of these cars, there's a common theme. Each one carried a badge that once symbolized power, aggression, and dominance. But changing times, new regulations, and shifting market demands forced manufacturers to adapt, sometimes in ways that didn't sit well with loyal fans. Still, even these controversial models tell an important part of the muscle car story. They show us how the industry fought to survive during one of its toughest eras. And today, because of that history, some of these once criticized cars are finally gaining appreciation. Now I want to hear from you. Which one of these do you think was the biggest fall from grace? And is there one you secretly like despite the criticism? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read them all, and I'd love to know your take. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next countdown.